I am here to introduce our 50th reunion class speaker, someone we all know and love. He is a retired litigator, and he is a current board member for the Undiagnosed Disease Network Foundation, which is a nonprofit focused on enhancing the quality of life for people with extra rare and undiagnosed diseases. He has also served as a board member of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation and chaired many, many events for them and helped them raise a whole lot of money. And without further ado, the one, the only, Gerald Owen Sweeney.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Reunion Committee and DePauw University for giving me an award which many of you don't know about. It is the Best Convocation Speaker Award in history of DePauw.
We had this conversation for weeks.
We have, Tony.
This isn't even a DePauw thing. This is some pitiful little marathon medal that you probably bought on the top. I mean, it's awful.
You know,
no, get over it, babe. I mean, no.
You know, a visit to DePauw is an inspirational event. And I have actually another medal that I received. I'd like to address an observation that I made and a realization I've had in the last 10 minutes, and that is the difference between the classes in the 1980s and the 70s is that you phase out of being able to use your cell phone to give a speech. You may not realize that yet, but it's coming. I can guarantee it. Anyway, with respect to my commitment today to make this address, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you, and particularly to all of my friends, and that is in the entire class of 1974. You know, East College is the symbol of DePauw. You see it on everything, stationery, literature, everything. Its imposing brick and stone facade imply unwavering tradition since the days of Indiana Asbury University. But in reality, at every point in time, DePauw has been the sum of its students, not its architecture. In fact, DePauw is neither unwavering nor static. It's a kaleidoscope, the images of which have continued to change as the world has changed. In some instances, it has led that change, and in others, it's failed to recognize it. The bottom line is that the DePauw of today is not the DePauw of 1974. 11 members of my family attended DePauw, were students here over a span of 73 years, from 1939 to my son's graduation. My wife is here, I should say our son's graduation. But he likes me better. In 2012. Comparing experiences and traditions over 7 decades demonstrates the fluidity, actually the flexibility of DePauw. I have recollections of Greencastle in the 1950s, and now I have fact checkers here in the room too, so I'm a little concerned about this, but anyway, I have recollections of Greencastle in the 1950s, arriving for Old Gold Day in the backseat of my parents' Oldsmobile 98 with a big rocket on the hood. There was a parade of floats and guys wearing letter sweaters and khaki pants that were painted with Greek letters and cartoons. It had the feel of a movie set in White Christmas, but without Bing Crosby, Rosemary Clooney, and certainly no snow. If Fred Astaire had tap danced down the steps of the Union Building, I don't think anybody would have thought that was unusual. Back in the 40s and 50s, on May 1st, May Day, there was the tradition of a maypole, decorated with flowers around which co-eds danced in a circle holding ribbons attached to the pole. I looked up the origin of the maypole as I was researching for this presentation. Its roots are in ancient pagan rituals. Yeah. I don't think you have to be Freud to figure out what the significance of the pole was. Now, I would have understood this in Stonehenge, but I was never quite sure what this was about at DePauw. The traditions of the 50s and 40s and 50s were quaint, silly, and even probably sexist by today's measure, but they were shaped in the context of the times, a celebratory post-war America. My father's class of 43, and my father in particular, loved to come back to the campus. He loved the traditions because DePauw had represented to him a bucolic paradise for a generation that lived through the Great Depression and a world war. Yet somehow these folks remained optimists, the characteristics we attribute to the greatest generation that continued to shape America for decades and still does today. My father was the product of a depressionary period. He sold candy on the beach along Lake Michigan. He worked in the stockyards. He was a rector scholar here at DePauw, and he went on to ensign training at Notre Dame in 1943 and then served in the South Pacific. That was one of the reasons, his experiences, that brought him back here and why he cherished DePauw. It was an isolated, perfect place in his eyes. As the kaleidoscope has continued to turn, old traditions were replaced with new ones. In 1970 to 1974, our world was much different than that of our parents. It was a tumultuous time heavily influenced by protests, political discord, domestic terrorism, racial unrest, and a raging war in Southeast Asia. We were 18 years old, and there was a need to blow off steam due to a war in which we were expected to participate, but often felt that we did not have a voice. Streaking naked around the boulder at East College, marching but actually walking to President Kerstetter's house made some sort of a statement in the context of DePauw in the early 1970s. Culturally, the arts and literature of the 70s did not rival Dr. Bergman's dramatic readings of the 7th century Beowulf or the Middle Ages Canterbury Tales, but the music, the movies, and the art were uniquely our own. Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney had long ago given way to the not-so-subtle poetry of Brett's hit in August 1970, the lyrics of which were, and I didn't write this is the lyrics, "And if you're wondering what this song is leading to, I want to make it with you." There were the blunt, if not romantic, 70s stylings of the Starland Vocal Band's Grammy-winning hit, the lyrics of which were, "Gonna find my baby, gonna hold her tight, gonna grab some afternoon delight." I take no credit for these lyrics. We learned from, in the theaters, we learned from Ally McGraw and Ryan O'Neal that love never means having to say you're sorry. According to marriage statistics, that was poor advice.
Yeah. Thank you.
With which over 50% of the American population would disagree. We learned from Timothy Bottoms and John Hausman in The Paper Chase that Harvard Law was an unforgiving place, a view with which former Harvard President Claudine Gay would likely agree today, but for entirely different reasons. Times have changed. Would anyone today think that I Want to Make It With You or Gonna Grab Some Afternoon Delight would climb to the top of the Billboard charts in 2024? Of course not. My father's DePauw in 1943 was not ours, nor was ours in 1974 our son's. DePauw 38 years later in 2012. There's a funny thing about DePauw, and I think we all feel this way, and I think it's evident by the fact that we're all back here. We tend, and are even encouraged in many ways, to feel that we have equity, that we own shares of DePauw University. We do not actually own shares of DePauw, but the downside to that belief is that it makes us feel oftentimes that what worked for us back in the day still works today. But the kaleidoscope lens has turned 50 more times since 1974. The campus is actually the stage on which we celebrate our past this weekend, but it is not our current address. In 2024, DePauw belongs to a multicultural, multiracial, domestic, and international group of young adults living in a very complicated social media world facing a new set of complex issues. These students are, in fact, our investment, and we're betting that the return will be a measurably better world at a time when it could not be more important. We are not diminished by stepping aside. Encouraging well-considered institutional change is a sign of intellectual vitality at a time in life when maybe you most need to be reassured you have it. 50 years after leaving, we take our most important and substantive role supporting the bold and gold plans of those who are actually charged with seeing the future of higher education and positioning DePauw as a first-tier, first-class, private liberal arts university in a competitive and rapidly changing world. So here's to DePauw in all of its iterations, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The best days are yet to come.